Taxpayers have been funding development projects in parts of the world that are richer than some areas of the UK, a report claims. This is from the IEA, the Institute of Economic Affairs. One, I think, that is going to really stick in people's craw is we gave apparently £244,061 to a project to alleviate traffic congestion in Kuala Lumpur. What? What about traffic congestion in London or Manchester or Birmingham or on the M1? You know, can we have some money to alleviate the traffic congestion there, please?
Yes, it's nearly £250,000. That's a lot of money. And what's interesting about this is actually Kuala Lumpur has a regional GDP per capita of just over 21,000,
right,
which is comparable to Sefton
right,
in Merseyside. So the point is that compared to our own deprivation or otherwise, or where we are in terms of economic standing,
right,
we're giving money to an area, a part of the world that actually...
It doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it. It's the same as...
Right.
And there's another one, 200...
And what's the point, by the way, of that? I mean, what are we gaining by giving money to Malaysia to fix their traffic problem?
You could make an argument for soft power, for influence.
Yeah, they'll say that. They'll go, oh, yeah, that's because we do loads of trade with Malaysia.
Yeah.
But do we? I don't know.
Well, before, you know, I think we're facing more, now under Keir Starmer's government more towards the European Union rather than trying to secure trade deals, what, 8,000 miles away around on the other side of the world. The other one I thought was interesting was £200,000 to foster creativity in Chinese communities. That's a project in Shanghai, which is going to be funded by our Department for Business. Just so you know, just on that, apparently Shanghai has the same wealth same personal wealth as Redbridge and Walton Forest in London.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It is absolutely bonkers. The IEA has described the spending as Robin Hood in reverse. Don't tell Kevin O'Sullivan that. He's got a bit of a thing for Robin Hood, the Sheriff of Nottingham, but that's another story altogether. Let's look at some clips from last night. Barack Obama, a man who was a fantastic orator, a useless president, was speaking last night in Chicago.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
The Democrats are clearly trying to make out that Trump's sort of bonkers, aren't they? They're trying to say, look at this guy, he's not really fit to be a president, he's crazy, he's even more mad than he was, you know, 4 years ago and 8 years ago, and he's a nutcase.
Something of a Damascene conversion for Barack Obama, of course, because you'll remember when Joe Biden said that he was no longer standing down, Barack Obama issued a statement not endorsing outright Kamala Harris. He issued a statement saying that there needed to be, in effect, a process where the Democratic Party got
until Nancy Pelosi told him to shut up, which he then did. Actually, I don't know if we've got that. Have we got the Nancy Pelosi thing from last night? No. But there's an amazing scene of her from the night before when Joe Biden was speaking. And there's been a lot said about that, by the way, because he was pushed out of prime time. They pushed him so late that I think when I came in yesterday morning at sort of 5 o'clock, he was speaking. So he was talking about sort of 11 o'clock at night. And so they pushed him out of the prime time slot. People are saying, you know, not only did the Democrats throw him under a bus, they don't even let him give his kind of swan song during prime time so the networks could cover it on the news.
Yeah, and there are, of course, concerns, and they don't want to... I think what they don't want to do is to open him up to too much scrutiny, because, you know, the call from the Republicans and from Trump has been, well, if you're not able to stand for another 4 years, then why should you be seeing out the remainder of your term? And you know, actually, compared to how badly it went when he was in that debate with Trump, where he fell to bits, he didn't do that badly. But it was all done on an auto cue, of course, and it was just quite easy just to, you know, just read the words in front of you. But yeah, it feels like, and I think, you know, there is certainly a soreness, isn't there? The way Joe Biden, especially his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, feels that he was treated, especially by Nancy Pelosi, who basically was the one who just said, no, this is just finally knifed him in the back.
And I wonder whether the debates between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will actually be quite significant, because if whoever wins those might end up winning the whole thing. But let's see what Michelle Obama had to say about Donald Trump.
We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hard-working, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
So making race a big part of it as well. Let's have a look at what Donald Trump has to say about all of it.
I don't think she's a very bright person. I do feel that. I mean, I think that's right. I think I am a very bright person, and a lot of people say that. I don't think she's a very bright person. And you know what? Our country needs a very smart person, and I don't think she's a very smart person. So I'm not looking to, I don't consider that an insult. That's just a fact.
But what evidence do you have for that?
I looked at the things that she said. I looked at the way she deals. I looked at her record of her crazy record. I look at her policies. I just don't happen to think so.
Donald Trump there speaking to our sister network CBS.
Now, I picked this up yesterday, speaking to our sister network CBS. Have you ever heard the BBC say that? I've never heard them say it. I didn't know that the CBS network was a sister network to the BBC. No. Is there something we need to be told?
I didn't know that. I assume there's some sort of deal. But what's interesting, and people are going to criticise Donald Trump, right? But he's taking questions from a reporter.
Yeah, unlike Kamala Harris.
To this point, hasn't done.
Right.
And of course there's a nervousness, we were discussing this yesterday, that if suddenly she opens herself up to scrutiny before the nomination has been rubber stamped, it's going to happen, of course, in Chicago this week. But actually, Democrats might go, not quite sure about that. Do we actually?
I know.
Or do we need to have a wider conversation about who should take over?
Yeah, exactly right. Let's have a look at what J.D. Vance, who of course is Trump's second in command, the man who's running as vice presidential candidate, had to say about preparing for his debate with Tim Walz.
I'd like to know how you were prepping for a debate with Tim Walz, who has described himself as a bad debater. Who's helping you, and how are you prepping?
Well, I found a good friend from back home who embellishes and lies a lot, and I'm having him stand in for Tim Walz. That's what we're doing during our debate.
That's a great line, isn't it? I think he's a real diamond in the rough, is old J.D. Vance. I mean, he's an ex-Marine, you know, he's a down-to-earth character, family man. I think he's Donald Trump's strength, and I think Tim Walz is actually Kamala Harris's weakness.
And it'll be interesting, he's talking about lying and embellishing. The implication of what J.D. Vance is saying is he's going to go after, and you mentioned, of course, J.D. Vance's military record, he's going to go after Tim Walz's military record, and whether he avoided being sent overseas on operations.
Yeah. Absolutely right. We have to talk about the front pages this morning, all of which have got one version or another of the terrible story from the Mediterranean of that yacht that went down. The Sun have got sunk in 60 seconds, and they had, I saw this last night, some incredible footage that was captured by a CCTV camera of the boat that you can see in the midst of this terrible storm. You can see the rain pouring down, you can see the lights on the boat, and you just see it disappearing into the sea. And divers, I think, have been down looking, but they've had so little time to try and find anybody. They haven't found anybody. There's still an awful lot of people missing. It's such a strange story, isn't it?
It is, and the front page of the Telegraph is there's a probe. It's reporting into whether the hatches were left open on this super yacht. I was listening to a boating expert. I don't know, I'm not a boating expert myself, but I was listening to a boating expert who said it's actually quite difficult for a boat of this size to sink. Yeah. What boats usually do when they run aground is they just sort of list in the water. They don't sink to the bottom. For that to happen, you need basically
to be full of water.
Full of water. Yeah. So you take all the air out of the boat and it just sinks to the bottom. That's what needs to happen. And I don't understand why the hatches would be open if there was a huge storm. You know, it's not like there's one person on this boat.
But also the other thing that's strange, we're just looking at the video now, the other thing that's strange is that it was so close to land because the CCTV footage was from 200 metres away. But Theo, we're out of time, unfortunately. Thanks very much indeed. Theo Usherwood there with some of the big stories. We'll